Hello DevOps friends, welcome to Full Stack Live, your live stream from OPSITIVE. I'm Johan, your host, and I'm happy to have you. Hey Exegete.io, thanks for stopping by. Good morning to you, how are things? Yeah, so I'm still broadcasting from Germany, where I am vacationing with my family, and today we're going to do some infrastructure as code and also a little bit of work on my Rails development environment, which seems to be botched in some way. We'll find out why and how, and we'll fix it. And if there's still some time, I think I still have a little bit of work to do for my Linux course, which I'm going to do later this week. To be specific, I'm going to do the next live lecture for my Linux course on Thursday, and for that I will have to prepare a few slides, and yeah, I'll invest a little bit of time into this as well, if there is still some. Exegete writes, things are fine, resorting to a cup of coffee since I'm not allowed carbonation. Okay, I have a little bit of sparkling water here, but I don't mind it getting a little bit stale. I'm not too fond of carbonated stuff, but yeah, sometimes it's quite nice, especially since it's pretty warm outside. So that's why I might actually not do my stream on a Thursday, because it might be simply weather to rather hop into a pool or into a lake, and I might as well do that with my wife and kids. So instead of sweating my behind off on Thursday afternoon, I might be at a lake refreshing myself. I'll let you know on short notice if there is still going to be a stream. Maybe it's going to rain or something. Who knows? But yeah, don't expect too much this week. It's my final holiday week, so next week I'll be back in Ireland and in my home office / studio, so things should go back to normal soon. And in the meantime, I'm trying to live the work-life, what is it called? It's not balance, that's exactly not what I'm aiming for. It's the work-life integration, where I try to use the freedom that I have in a distributed team to do a little bit of vacation and a little bit of work. And so far it's been working nicely, and I'm pretty relaxed and refreshed, so I can actually go back to a more normal mode of work next week with full work days again. But this week will be a little bit more relaxed still. But let's get a few things done at least this afternoon. And I'm going to start with an issue with my development environment. I wanted to make a few minor changes to our company's hosting dashboard, but for some reason my development environment doesn't spin up. In particular, Redis seems to make some issues, and we'll have to find out what it is. By the way, should I drop off Twitch all of a sudden, that's because there seems to be a bug in OBS that's hitting me, and that kills my OBS session about between 1 and 2 hours in. So if that's the case, stick around. Chat will still work for a while, and I'll try to get online as soon as I notice either from your chat messages or from the background music dropping off. Just that as a small PSA in advance. Okay, so yeah, let's go right into the issue with Redis. So let's see. There we go. So what's happening is that I get this error message up here from the Redis container. So I'm running all dependencies in Docker containers. Just the Rails application itself runs right on my laptop here. And Redis tells me it can't handle the RDB format version 10. And in my experience, that usually points to an upgrade that has happened in the meantime. And this newer version is somehow incompatible with an existing data set. On the other hand, it's most often the other time around that you have a data set that was created by a newer version, and now you're trying to use it with an older version of the software that doesn't yet know this specific format. But in any case, it doesn't look like it. So if you have any ideas what it could be, I'm more than open to suggestions, because there are two things. First of all, let's switch to my Docker Compose file. I've pinned Redis to version 6.2 here. So it should be using the Redis version that I've been using all along. And except the installation here is somehow much newer or older, it should work. It's pretty constrained in terms of versions. It's limited to 6.2, so that shouldn't be an issue there. Yeah, and that brings me to number 2. As Exegete says, maybe it's a volume that is somehow too old or too new. I'm using the Redis data Docker volume here, which gets mounted into the Docker container as /data. And I already tried dropping that, but we can do that again. Let's do this again. If I do a Docker volume list here, I get a bunch of anonymous volumes, and then there's the volumes created by Docker Compose for this specific project, dashboard API Redis data. And we can actually remove this. No tab completion? Okay, dashboard API Redis dash data. Docker Compose down volumes. Okay. You mean, yeah, why not? It's a development environment and I have development seed files, so that should be possible. Okay, so there you can actually do a Docker Compose down, including all volumes. Okay, that's great. I was looking for a Docker Compose volume command, but that doesn't exist, so you have to use Docker directly. But yeah, I'm happy to do that. Docker Compose down --volumes. Okay, there's also, oh yeah, that's because the Docker host for some reason isn't set in my toolbox environment here. That's something I need to get in under control as well. So that should work now. Has associated containers with it. Network is being used. That shouldn't be the case. Let's try and do a -f as well. And that didn't work. Removing, oh, it says removing network dashboard API default, and there are still containers associated with it. Something seems to be off here. Maybe it comes from an incomplete shutdown or something. And so let's find out what the issue here is. We have a Docker network dashboard API default with associated containers. So the only container running at the moment is my toolbox in which I'm working at the moment. So that's not it. Is there a way? Well, is it that Docker network? I haven't used or dabbled with the network stuff yet. Let's see. Has associated containers with it. Just let's simply look for that. So where's my browser? Docker network has associated containers. Find the network for container. Docker inspect. Oof, okay. Yeah, maybe your hint with Docker ps-a is actually a good idea. So let's do that. Docker ps-a. There's not much more, but there is the dashboard API app, which can definitely go. Docker rm. And let's go back to Docker DC down volumes. Okay, that seems to have cleaned up things. And yeah, now we should be able to spin up as usual. Database is initializing. Let's zoom into this tmux window. So Postgres has started, Chef has started, Redis is ready to accept connections. Okay, everything seems to have initialized cleanly, which means that I can actually go down here and do bin setup, which will create all the necessary databases and stuff. It's always a good thing to have such a bin/setup file in there because it makes spinning up a development environment much easier, especially for people who are new to the project. But in this case, it helps me as well. It's interesting that it has to install so many gems. That means that this project hasn't been running on this laptop for quite a while. I wasn't sure when I worked last on this laptop with this project, and it seems to have been quite some time. Definitely not since this gem file was updated. No, that's running on my laptop actually. The Rails application itself is running natively on my laptop in an RBN environment, but all the auxiliary services like Redis and Postgres are running in a Docker container. I'd like to take another look at development containers eventually, where the application itself will run inside a container as well, and maybe using a plugin or something, I'll connect my editor right into with the code that runs inside the container, but yeah, I'll have to do that another time. Okay, there's still an issue where it wasn't able to initialize the database. And it says get address info name or service not known. It couldn't connect to the database, I assume. So let me try something. Just a second. Oh, I see. I'm definitely missing my Stream Deck. But instead of enabling my secrets cover, I'll simply switch to my talking scene instead, because I'd like to see if the environment has even been set up properly in my .env file. And since I'm not sure if I'll reveal something in there, I'll yeah, okay. The .env file is more or less pristine as from the repository. Exactly, yeah. I discovered quite a few NeoVim plugins that enable you to work with development containers, and I'll definitely give them a try. So there is no Stripe setup, not even a test key or something in there, and definitely not a database URL, but that doesn't seem to be in there anyway. So let me see. I'll take a look at the database configuration. Database YAML says it'll connect to DB host with the Postgres user. But I think that'll get overridden if you define a DB database URL environment variable. And let me make sure that I even have the latest code here. Yeah, that's up to date. Okay, so that's a relief. I was afraid there for a second that I might be running old code with old setup or something. Okay. Now, I guess we can go back to coding here. Apparently, it can't connect to the database. Address, info, name or service not known. There is no database URL in .env. Question is, what is it going to connect in the first place? So how about we run this ourselves? Rails db drop. Actually, that's not surprising, because if there is no database configuration, it's DCPS actually, and again there's the Docker host issue. So we're running Postgres and we are simply using the container port forwarded to my host. But there's nothing that tells my application to connect to that, is there? If I say db, wait a second. Oh no, I don't have a smart caps lock on this keyboard. db host equals localhost. Nope, that's not going to work. Oh dear, the heat is affecting me. How about that? Still not working. How is this supposed to work in the first place? Let's take a look at the README. Hopefully I wrote something down here. But that might be outdated. Technical debt hitting me here. Maybe my .env file is simply too old. Because it should simply require Docker Compose up and that's it. And then bin setup. So maybe the .env file I have locally isn't simply isn't up to date. So what's the .env sample? Yeah, look at that. There is a db host entry that's definitely not in my local.env. The other stuff is in there. So I'll copy that into my otherwise pretty identical .env file where there's still no stripe key in there and anything else. So dbhost localhost, I guess that could do the trick. So let's simply try and do a db drop. It should at least give us an error message that the database doesn't exist. But still we have a get address info error. Database file says host is dbhost and username Postgres, password Postgres, and then I simply have different databases defined for development, testing, and production. That's what happens when you only set up development environments very infrequently, because I still can't remember anymore what was required to get things running last time I set this up. And I can only assume that I didn't write it down when I finally got it working, and so now I'll have to do it all over again. Let that be an example for you. Or rather a warning or deterrent. Write things down. Okay, how do I find out where the database is actually what database Rails actually tries to connect to? Let's see. Rails get database, show database, connection details, something like that. I'm not going to be able to get a Rails console because it doesn't even spin up. Otherwise, I could use the connection DB config, but oh, I can really feel the heat. My thoughts are slow as molasses. How do we tackle this? That's in window 2 here. The strange thing it says is that it says get address info name or service not known, which points to an error with host name resolution. And there shouldn't be any host name in play there. Oh, I should take a closer look at my stack trace here. It's in the rollout.rb initializer, and rollout is the gem that I use to implement feature flags, and those feature flags are stored in Redis. So it's not about Postgres at all, it's about Redis here. And yeah, so that is now, see, I'm completely blind here. Let's go back to our .env file. And the Redis URL here, of course, is Redis 6379, which is, of course, bogus. It needs to be localhost 6379. That's still a remnant of when I did run my application inside a container. I did run a development container for a while. And why did I do that? Because I was using VS Code or something, so that's quite a while ago. Now let's immediately go and switch our .env.sample file, where it's already corrected. So my .env file was actually simply completely outdated, and I didn't spot the difference there. Okay, so let's try this again. Let's do the bin setup again, because now it should actually work. I assume. Yes. Here we go, getting on a database. It did fail to execute structure SQL. Okay, it couldn't create the database schemas because it tried to run PSQL. And I would assume that PSQL simply doesn't exist. Which PSQL? Yeah, there's no PSQL in there. So let's put some faith in past me to actually have documented that. I guess there's still only a block for Manjaro Linux, the Linux distribution I was using previously, but have since replaced with Fedora Silverblue. So there should be a new block here to get the appropriate dependencies installed on Fedora. Yes, let me put this on screen here. So Exegete asked, you use SQL for your seeds? Yes, I do. And the reason is that I'm using sequences, Postgres sequences, to basically generate data which was necessary because I had legacy data where the automatically generated sequences didn't work, or at least I didn't know how to reset the sequences to not start from 1 or 0, whatever, where they start. And so I created my own sequences, that's why I couldn't use the normal schema.rb, because Rails doesn't export custom sequences to schema.rb correctly, and so I'm using raw SQL to get everything in place. So there is something that's necessary, like PostgreSQL. Yeah, I think I simply need to install PostgreSQL. So let's actually let's at least start documenting these things.
It's a Unix system. I know this.
Salve, welcome to the stack. Happy to have you here. Thank you for the follow. I guess I'll leave out a lot of these things. Yeah, why? I guess I'll just add what I really know needs to be there. In this case, it's definitely PostgreSQL. So let's go here. I have a simple little alias, DIY, which stands for DNF install-y, and PostgreSQL. What brings you here, South Boy? How are things? If you have any questions, feel free to hit me. That's that. Let's try the psql command again. Now it's here, so running bin setup should now actually work. What's the best meal you've had so far on your trip to Germany? I haven't had too many fancy meals yet, but I was out eating a few times. And I think it was the sushi. We went to a nice little sushi restaurant here in town that has opened recently, and I had a bunch of rolls there with salmon, tuna, and avocado, and that was pretty delicious. And it wasn't expensive either. So yeah. Yeah, it's not particularly German, but I don't tend to eat too much German food. Being a vegetarian, most of the sausage-based stuff and other meat-based stuff is out of the question, and so yeah, most of the time I rely on staples like Asian food, Indian food, things like that. For which, of course, there are also quite a few great restaurants in Germany. Yeah, I'm vegetarian actually. First, I simply adapted to my wife, who is a vegetarian for all the right reasons. Yeah, because of basically the animals and stuff. And I simply became vegetarian out of solidarity. But if concern for the animals themselves isn't a reason to be vegetarian, the whole climate crisis should be. And so that basically nailed it for me, realizing that the whole meat industry does significantly contribute to climate change, and that's definitely not something that I'd like to support. So for me, it's more ecological reasons in general, rather than concern for the animals themselves. Or to put it in other words, I'm more concerned about the humans than the animals in being a vegetarian. Hope that doesn't make me a bad person. Yeah, Indian is great. I love all the flavors, and I enjoy the variety. Indian food is probably my favorite food, I think. Okay, so Setting up my database worked. Let's give this thing a full test, just to exercise it a little bit. Yeah, Korma is great. I love the creamy stuff as well. Most of the times I'm even oh, interesting. Okay, I need to actually generate my assets. I need to run the asset pipeline. Yeah, so most of the time I'm very simple by choosing a simple dal or something, because yeah, lentils, all the legume stuff is really great. Ah, and it's your dental surgery that's preventing you from having spicy stuff, I guess. Yeah, fingers crossed that you'll soon get to taste that again. So, what is it? It's assets precompile, right? Bin rails, and I guess I need to set the rails env. Rails env equals development bin rails assets precompile, right? And now let's run tests again. Yep, okay, that's that. That's that. Right, man. Yep, now we don't get the asset warnings or error messages anymore. I think we're now in a good place. Okay. But still, that took half an hour to get everything set up. Yeah, come to think of it, I might actually not have done dashboard development on this laptop since I abandoned it for a real desktop machine. That might actually be the case. Because I'm only getting it out for travel, basically. I bought it as a desktop replacement machine with Windows of all operating systems. And when I realized that I could do everything with a Linux desktop, I reinstalled it and might have done a little bit of development work on there for the dashboard, but the fan running all the time got on my nerves, and so that's why I got myself a proper desktop box. And since this laptop is pretty heavy with its gaming setup with with an RTX 2070 Super in it, I don't need it much, and I don't want to lug it around to Starbucks or something. For that, I got a lighter laptop, a smaller 14-inch one. And so yeah, this laptop doesn't see much development work nowadays. And I have no idea where the different Indian dishes come from, rather than India, which might even well include Pakistan as well. I'm really ignorant in that regard. I think the most things I learned about India, I learned from the Ms. Marvel series. Exit writes, I might have wiggled my way into a hardware upgrade at work. Ah, well done. Pointed out, I'm still on an Intel MacBook Pro when discussing biometric authentication to Okta. Yeah, that's a great opportunity. If you have something enterprisey like that, which might require biometric authentication for everyone just to comply with enterprise regulations, that's a great opportunity to upgrade your stuff. MacBook Pro Max incoming, I guess. Okay, so all I did was update the README, and yeah, I'm going to make this change actually. Let's do a git commit chore docs update README. After struggling with an outdated .env file, or file, let's put it this way. While struggling with I noticed that installation details for other distributions other than Manjaro. Distributions other than Manjaro are missing. At least I started the Fedora section in this page. The gem that I'm using for feature flags is called Rollout. And it uses Redis to manage the different activations. You can, of course, do the usual stuff like enable features for specific users. You can define groups and activate features for these specific groups. I'm using that feature, for example, to enable features for our early access customers who'd like to do some beta testing for us. And you can also do the gradual rollout, where you can say only enable this feature for about 10% of our users or things like that. And by using Redis, the rollout gem doesn't require you to make code changes to change the feature flag logic. You can, of course, enable features for specific users, groups, or for everyone from your code, but you can also simply open a Rails console in your production environment and change entries in the Redis database yourself. You don't have to access Redis directly. You can still use the Ruby classes rollout provides you with, and but by doing it from a Rails console, you can avoid having to make code changes that still need to be tested and rolled out. So you can basically circumvent the whole rollout process for your application by storing data directly in Redis. Does it record with which users get which features? Yeah, that's exactly what's mapped inside the Redis database. Rollout basically has a big JSON document where it maps feature flags as symbols to specific user or groups, to specific user accounts or groups. And I can show you how this works. In terms of code, whoops. I create this global constant called feature, which is my rollout instance that controls the controls the feature flags, and here I'll define two groups. The group admins is characterized by users that respond to admin A with true, and the EAP group in turn is users that respond to the EAP_enabled A method with true. That way I can then go and activate features globally by simply calling activate on a symbol. So these are all features that have long been rolled out to everyone, so I've actually hardwired this inside the code. But for example, we can also activate specific features for a group by using the activate_group method, where, for example, I enabled API access to only our EAP customers. And the newer features that I'm in the process of rolling out at the moment are only enabled for the admins. So the staging instances feature is only enabled for the admins group, and the same goes for the doc root feature. And I'll have to change these two to EAP as well. And actually I can go right ahead and do that. Otherwise, on the other hand, yeah, I need to look up the GitLab issue numbers for that, so it's properly mapped to our project planning. So I'm not going to do that willy-nilly, but it'll only take a few minutes to get this. And since everything is stored in Redis, I can also use these methods that I've defined. Active, I can pass in a feature flag symbol, and it'll tell me, is this feature flag active for the current user? And I've also created a method here, force all active, which is the case when I'm running this in testing. So I can actually force all feature flags to be enabled when I run tests. Otherwise, parts of the user interface will be missing and my tests will fail. That's of course not something that you would like to have. So the active method here actually takes into account, are all feature flags to be assumed active because we are running in testing, or the regular way where we actually query rollout, is this feature active for the current user, which is basically the production branch here. So that's how I go about these things. Features that get enabled globally, this is hard-coded here. Features that are in an in-between state, where they are working but not enabled for everyone. I might enable them for early access customers. Or for example, the doc root feature is finished and it should get rolled out soon. But there was a customer who asked if we could actually provide them with this feature. And so I went into the Rails console and did an activate of this doc root feature for their specific user account, and now they can use it as well. Yeah, have fun getting your kid ready for the day. We'll talk later. Okay. So yeah, I'm going to do the actual work on these feature flags later. I just wanted to get my environment working on this laptop, which is the case now. So we'll put a pin in that. And Now I need to decide how to proceed. So there was some infrastructure as code work that I wanted to get done. But the heat is really getting to me. So what's the temperature? We have 30 degrees Celsius outside at the moment, and I'm pretty sure it's not much less inside here. So am I actually going to do that, or will I simply take a break and take a shower or so? That's an interesting conundrum. I could actually do some... See, I want to get a more regular daily schedule again, because at the moment, since I'm here on vacation, or pseudo vacation at least, I'm still doing work, as is obvious here. I'm getting up late and going to bed late as well, which there is probably a connection between the two. And I really was hoping I would get a more regular schedule again, where I get to bed in time and get up early and do my stuff. From a temperature standpoint, on the other hand, it would be a good idea to either work into the night when it's getting cooler again, or get up really, really early and get my most important work done before temperatures rise above a certain degree. So, yeah, I might have to think about that, how I'm going to spend this last week here in Germany before I retreat to more moderate weather back in Ireland. So, let's at least switch projects here. These are the chef cookbooks, which we use to control basically our full managed hosting infrastructure consisting of a few hundred Linux servers. Let's make sure I have all the latest changes. Okay, that's good. And I have to make a change to our nginx proxy cookbook that we use to put nginx proxies in front of specific services. For example, that enables us to do basic authentication for these services if it's not built into them. For example, with a service like Prometheus and its node exporter, we can simply put an nginx proxy in front of that and require basic authentication to force people to log in to get access to Prometheus. And nginx will also provide us with SSL certificates, which we get from Let's Encrypt. And for that, I have the Let's Encrypt provisioner also built into the nginx cookbook, or integrated. It's not built in, but it's integrated with this nginx cookbook. So Let's Encrypt certificates will be pulled and automatically updated. And it also enables us to run, for example, services that usually run on different ports under the same port. For example, our Prometheus servers also run the Prometheus Alert Manager. And by using nginx in front of both, we can combine them under the same domain name and under the same port, but just with different paths. So these reverse proxy setups enable us to get a more homogeneous and easier to handle environment here. And what I'd like to do is put all our Prometheus node exporters behind an nginx proxy as well, without any basic authentication, but still protecting access from the outside world by doing IP address based authentication, basically. So only our Prometheus servers should be able to actually query the node exporter instances on our servers, and that will require an extension to our nginx proxy cookbook. Now let's take a look at GitLab, how that's actually implemented or arranged. Let's go to our cookbooks project. There we go. Or rather, let's go to the current issue board, where I have an issue here that is basically the root of this. We should put the metrics endpoint or the whole node exporter behind something that prevents outside access. And this is an issue in our Box infra repository, so it's more of a meta issue, or you could call it a mini epic. And I guess I'll create a new issue here. New related issue. But it'll create that in the same repository, and that's not something I want to do. Yeah, these finer details of the GitLab-based project workflow need still to be worked out. There are linked items. Maybe that's something. Nope. And tasks aren't actually what I want to do either. Or is it? No. I mean, I can always create an issue where I want it to end up, but isn't there any way to... create an issue outside of the originating project? That's something I need to find out. For now, I'll create my issue myself. Go here. Let's look for nginx just to avoid duplicating something. Doesn't look like it. Okay, so I'll create a new issue. Or do I even have to create a new issue? Actually, I don't. I actually don't have to update the nginx cookbook in the first place, because I can actually use my custom nginx configuration right from the Prometheus cookbook. But that again requires another issue. So add nginx proxy in front of node exporter. To prevent outside access, the node exporter will only be open to the Prometheus server. Let's assign that to me. There is no specific epic for that. Labels are going to be scope is infra. Workflow is work in progress, implementation. The severity is security. And the cookbook, which we also should make a scoped label, is the engine. No, it's not the nginx cookbook actually. Let's remove that again. It's actually the Prometheus FreeStyle cookbook. So that's that, and the iteration is this week's iteration from August 15. Okay. And I'm using that to get the issue number 863, because I can use that to create an associated branch here. We do a git checkout. Checkout -b 863 node exporter proxy. 863 is okay, is correct, right? Yeah, I can't remember these numbers. Okay, so need more water. All right. So let's go into source Prometheus FreeStyle. Good. And I'll create a new shell here for running tests, and I'll actually run a full test suite here first, which tells me, yeah, I need to upgrade my gems in here as well. I'm surprised at the level of upgrades this laptop needs. I did do some work earlier this year on this, but yeah, time's marching on. Okay, let's try another test run. That didn't work. Didn't find cookbook Prometheus FreeStyle in any of the sources. What? What's wrong with you? Huh? Oh. Oh, Oh, we are pretty much outdated here. So there is an underscore and a dash version of the same cookbook. And let me guess, I'm in the dash version. Okay. Oh dear, there's much outdated stuff here. Why doesn't anyone tell me that I don't even live stream what I'm doing here? Local version is frozen on the remote server. That's correct, yeah. Of course, because the latest version has already been updated. So I can't actually use rake test here. I'll simply run a test separately, and so that's rake kitchen, right? And now it's trying to use the VirtualBox provider, which of course is not going to work either. Oof, did I make this machine use KVM already? I think we should be able to do that. Yeah, okay. So I need, oh god, is it libvirt something? No, it's vagrant default provider equals libvirt, right? Okay, let's hope this works now. That's looking better. Let's hope this IP address does actually get assigned. Otherwise, we are running into some bug that I struggled with in the past, but it seems to be okay. So what the system is doing now is spin up a VM using Vagrant and KVM, and then it installs Chef on the VM, and these VMs are also going to be Ubuntu VMs because we use Ubuntu LTS for our production infrastructure. And then it installs Chef on these VMs, and then it runs the actual Chef cookbook and all its dependencies, all the cookbooks that it depends on. And finally, it will run the tests that I've defined, or that we've defined for this cookbook, and that'll show me if everything is actually working. Because more often than not, I actually started developing on a cookbook right away, and then things broke in testing. And only after struggling a lot, I found out that the errors weren't related with any of my changes, but were there from the get-go. And that's something that I'd like to avoid. So I'll invest the time of seeing these tests run successfully on a pristine checkout before I even make my first change. And that way I can be sure if things break afterwards that I'm actually the culprit. It's getting hot in here. Live stream from a pool, that would be something. Well, there's this category, isn't there? Yeah, okay. So that's not what I was thinking of. I was actually thinking a laptop at the pool. So this takes quite a while here. But it's doing something. I guess the heat from the laptop itself doesn't really improve my environmental situation here. But yeah, air is still pretty cool that's coming out of the laptop, so it's not overheating or something. But it doesn't cool the room. And the sun is now shining into this room, so this room gets sunlight in the afternoon and evening. So it's probably going to get even hotter in here now. In the meantime, I can take a look at the code that we've been using for securing our Prometheus instances. So there is a proxy.conf proxy.conf.erb, and we'll probably have to make this name more specific because that's the proxy definition for the Prometheus server, where we have a location/Prometheus with basic authentication and a location/alert manager with the same block and referencing the same basic user file, so you can log into both with the same user and password. And that's the Prometheus proxy configuration. And then we'll need basically something very similar, but not based on basic authentication, but based on the IP address the related Prometheus server has. And since we are running infrastructure as code with a chef server in the center, we can actually find out what the Prometheus server's IP address is from the environmental information we have, and we can then write this into a IP access rule. So the node exporter proxy configuration should be simpler than the one we are using for the Prometheus server, but everything else is pretty much going to be the same. So where are we in terms of testing? The color has changed, which means we've switched to a different test suite. And so let's hope the first test suite actually was finished successfully. We can actually scroll up and see. So here we're getting yellow, and here's the blue test suite, which ends in all these tests here being green. So that's nice. Everything seems to be working. And I'll have to be patient to see everything finish successfully. In the meantime, I guess I can create a new proxy configuration file here. Am I going to do a subdirectory? I think it's worth creating a subdirectory because we have two recipes in here. One prometheus.rb, which sets up a central Prometheus server, and the node exporter recipe that's getting executed on all of our servers. And so yeah, Exegete asks, when using nginx to filter by IP, how do you prevent someone getting directly to the Prometheus node exporter? I'm not sure if I get this question right, because isn't the first thing which prevents the second thing? Because that's the plan. So you're all right. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Okay, now I got it. I'll blame it on the heat. What we have to do, of course, is that sorry about that, wrong window. I didn't even know that I could change scenes with my cursor keys. Okay, so what we have to do is actually, I think that's... no, that's not visible in the recipe. Oh yes, it should be visible in the recipe because that's where the... What's going on? Yeah, okay. Where's the... Where's the system D unit that actually... Oh, that's in a different cookbook. Oh, okay. So there is the Prometheus. But this should still be visible here somewhere. Yeah, so there's this web address attribute, which by default is open to the public. And we'll have to change that to localhost so that the actual Prometheus, or in this case the actual node exporter port, is only open on localhost, where it can be accessed from the locally running nginx instance, and only the nginx instance then answers outside to the internet. So here it's even hardwired. The alert manager by default already only answers on localhost and port 1993. And that's where nginx redirects all requests that actually pass basic authentication. So the service itself must run on localhost only, and then you put an nginx proxy in front that does answer to the outside, but only under specific conditions. In terms of in the case of Prometheus and Alert Manager, that's basic authentication with a username and a password, and in case of of the node exporter, it's going to be that it only responds to requests coming from the Prometheus server. And my test suite has finished, no error messages, so I have to assume that everything finished successfully. And if I list my VMs, they are all offline again because the test framework, which is called Test Kitchen, automatically cleans up after itself. So if the initial setup and then the subsequent tests are successful, then it tears down the VM again and frees all the resources. So these 4 test suites actually finished successfully. Last error is none, so everything is okay, and that means I can start making changes, and if things break, that's actually my fault. So what I'd like to do is first of all make things more specific here. So we'll have to rename the proxy configuration file. Actually asked, do you find any value in doubling that up with a web application firewall? I tended to run on disallowed ports on the host, then bind to localhost as a second layer. So only port 443 and 80 could get through and would run the app on 3030 or something. I don't see the additional value added by a web application firewall though. Because that'll only allow me a more fine granular control over the conditions and the traffic that gets sent to this HTTP endpoint. But that's not something that I'm missing at the moment. Maybe I'm actually missing a specific thing that I would gain from a WAF. Not sure. We do use web application firewalls in front of web applications. So in our actual hosting environment, there are web application firewalls that can prevent well-known attacks by actually parsing all the requests and things like that. But that also has a bit of a performance overhead, of course, or a performance penalty to be precise. And I'm not going to introduce that penalty without a specific reason. But if there is anything that you can point me at that would actually benefit me there, maybe I'm simply missing a piece, then I'll be more than happy to investigate that. So let's do first of all, let's do something a bit of a housekeeping to rename this to Prometheus proxy.conf. And that of course requires us to change the related part here where the template source is still proxy. So this needs to be renamed to Prometheus proxy.conf as well. And that should mean that things still run. And to prove that, I'll actually spin up one of these test instances here, the Prometheus Ubuntu 2004. Can do that directly by, oops. Nope, that's not what I wanted. Let's simply run a converge run on this test on this VM, which sets up the VM and runs our cookbook once. And since I need to do that during development multiple times simply to see if there are any syntax errors or things like that, that's definitely worth it to spin this up. And that'll show me immediately if my change here was enough or if there are other places where we reference this file name, and that will cause things to break. I don't expect that, but hey, who expects specific bugs? The Acme cookbook really takes a long time to run. That's the cookbook that installs all the necessary plumbing to access Let's Encrypt and get certificates created or updated. That seems to pull in quite a few dependencies, I guess. So my understanding from of a web application firewall would be a deep inspection of all the HTTP requests to maybe block well-known malicious requests and things like that. In this case, I don't expect there to be anything substantial. So I think a proxy that prevents people who are not our Prometheus server from accessing node exporter data should be enough. Come on. In the meantime, I'll go here and I'll actually copy this and create a new file, node exporter proxy.erb or even .conf.erb. Is it .conf? Yeah, okay. Both are .conf.erb, okay. And we'll do a listen address. Actually, that's, yeah, the listen address, no, not the listen address, but the listen port is going to be an issue. On which port are we going to listen to node exporter queries here? Well, let's see how this develops. We'll probably listen on a dedicated port. So I'll let it listen to slash here. There's not going to be basic authentication, so let's throw that out. There's also not going to be a second location, and we also don't need the well-known location for the let's encrypt setup. The proxy path is going to be, well, I guess localhost, then the node exporter path, right? So I'll simply do localhost. It's 9100, right? Default port. There's not going to be any TLS involved here. Not yet, I guess. And so that's that. We could always run it on, say, 19100. So just like in the Prometheus recipe, we'll copy this proxy block here and add that to the node exporter recipe, which by now is, or up until now, has been quite simple. But now we'll have to change that. That's going to be node exporter proxy.conf. Server name is going to be simply the fully qualified domain name of the server. The listen address is something we need to change. When I introduced these node attributes, I didn't take into account that this is also going to set up node exporter. So there is no actual hierarchy that would enable me to introduce the same attributes for the node exporter. So I guess what I'm going to do is oops. We call this Prometheus, and here node exporter. And then, yeah, I guess node exporter address. And we call that 19100. On the other hand, yeah, I can see that. So there's we are building on the Prometheus X cookbook here. And since there isn't any section for the node exporter, that shows me that we are using this cookbook's node exporter setup without any modifications. So what I am going to do is actually introduce a new section here where we actually use the node exporter attributes that it must publish here. Let's make this a little bit easier to see. So where is the whole node exporter stuff? Alert manager, node exporter. Here, the node exporter at the moment has the default listen address 000. And we'll change that by using an override here. And that's not cookbook name, actually. That's Prometheus X, Prometheus X. Node missing a quote here. Node exporter web listen address, and we'll make this 127. So that'll hardwire it to localhost 9100. The node exporter, let's be consistent with the underscores as well. So we call this node exporter address here. That's going to be all interfaces port 19100. And in the template for node exporter, which we'll also rename to have this underscore, we'll actually pass in this web address. Oops. So that needs to get an placeholder. And it's called node exporter address. And the other one is the node exporter web listen address, I guess. Yep. So what we're going to do is we'll introduce or we pass in a variable listen address, which is the destination to which we are going to proxy. Okay, there's a listen address already, and that's being used here. Okay, I guess we call it node exporter URL. Yeah. So listen address is the public one, and node exporter URL is going to be the internal one. And that's what we'll have to reference in our recipes here. Here are the variables, the node exporter URL. No, that's the internal one. And that's where the localhost addresses were actually hardwired here, interestingly enough. So there's no connection to a few of these attributes that have been defined, which is not very clean. Okay, we'll have to maybe clean this up. But that's not here nor there at the moment. So that's the node exporter URL, but we'll not hardwire this again. That's actually in the node attribute. Prometheus FileStyle. And then node exporter address. No, that's the node exporter URL. That's this one. Just a little bit more, just a little bit more, just a little bit more. Nope, that didn't work. Node exporter URL equals node Prometheus X node exporter web listen address, namely the localhost one. Okay. That's an end missing there, right? Yeah, deleted that by accident. And then we'll need the, and that needs to be a colon. No. And we'll need the listen address. And that's actually, yeah, node Prometheus FileStyle node exporter address, the newly introduced one. Perfect. Thanks, Copilot. And yeah, we need, oops. Turn this into an equal sign. Right? No, there are actually symbols. Okay. So. Okay. Now let's verify this. We have a listen address. That's the public one. And then we'll have the node exporter URL, which is the internal one. Okay. And in our template, this should look similarly. We have the node exporter URL, which is the private one, and the listen address, which is the public one. And the server names need to be defined as well. And I guess we dropped that. So let's copy that from the, oh no, that's actually one of these attributes here, server names. Yeah, okay. And that's still defined up here. Yeah. Okay. So what we need to do now is to actually run a test with the other test suite, which is the node exported one. Node exporter Ubuntu 2004 in this case. So let's do a TKC for this VM. So while this is running, which is not going to take too long, I'd like to take another look at the Prometheus setup we have here, because here we are hardwiring Prometheus and Alert Manager to be accessed on localhost. And that's only going to work if both services get set up using these recipes and the correct attributes. And they are, the web listen address is localhost here. Okay. And we could use that actually. We should actually use that. Otherwise you could override that and it won't work. It wouldn't have any effect. That's Prometheus. And then there's the alert manager. Oh, wait, yeah. And there's the web listen address as well. So this does work because the overrides here are used. And we should use these node attributes just to make sure that there's a connection. So let's get this and put this here. Oh, wait, oops. Nope. Yeah. So here we're going to use Prometheus X, Prometheus web listen address, whatever that is, but it should by all means be the localhost address. And let's do the same for the alert manager. Okay, so that should have the same effect, but now the node attributes, which are defined by our operations team, are actually used here so that there can't be any strange side effects if these attributes get changed. If, for example, we want to run these behind some other port, for example, then that should actually still be working. Okay, how far are we in terms of... Oh, this did actually break. So there is no node exporter proxy conf without the underscore. Yep, that's something we should have changed. And we do. We will change. That's in recipes, node exporter. The actual source is node underscore exporter proxy. And I do think there is still the one without the underscore. So let's throw that out of our editor. With that change made, this should actually run. The VM is still running, even though the convert run failed setting everything up, and it failed again. This time it didn't start nginx. So there is something wrong in our nginx configuration, I would assume. Yeah, let's check system control status nginx servers after logging into this machine. So I'll actually create a new shell here where I can actually access this VM, and that's node exporter. Node exporter Ubuntu 2004. And we'll have to do a system control status nginx. It is running. But if I do a reload nginx, that fails. So let's do journal control dash XE. Reload failed. Why did it fail? Invalid number of arguments in listen directive. In etc nginx sites enabled node exporter. So the listen directive doesn't work. I guess it's missing the actual value. Let's verify that. Let's see, nginx sites available or enabled node exporter. Shouldn't it be named nodeexporter.conf? Yeah, there's no listen address in there. The proxy pass does work, however. It'll forward to localhost 9100. So why is the listen address not working? Are we in node exporter? Yes. We pass in a variable called listen address. And that's node Prometheus freestyle node exporter address, which in turn node exporter address here, node underscore exporter address is all interfaces 19100. Prometheus freestyle node exporter address. That is pretty much what it's supposed to be. That's strange. But maybe it's actually something that is a remnant of a previous run. So let's remove that. And that'll... No, don't log out. We can actually simply jump over here and do another convert run. But it still fails. Okay. And I'd assume it's still missing the listen. listen address, right? Listen underscore address. Is that what's used in the template file too? Template node exporter. It's yeah, it's underscore. It's listen underscore address. Node exporter address. And that's equal to here. That's strange. I'm missing something here. I wonder what it is. Fails again because, oh no, now it's entered in here. So what's the failure now? Let's see. LPC, yeah. Welcome to the stack, by the way. Good to have you. Yeah, I'm missing something here. All these instances when you think this should be working, why isn't it? Oftentimes it's an embarrassingly simple thing, and it's just a typo that you kept overlooking even though you looked at it 10 times. And yeah, I don't feel bad anymore because it happens so often to me. Maybe you can spot something that, of course I did the same, especially when it happened on stream, where everything was there to look at me struggling. But by now, it happens so often that I don't mind anymore. It's just part and parcel of the development experience, I guess. So, I did a save all, and that seems to have made a change. And I don't actually remember what the actual issue was. And yeah, you're perfectly right. So I'll highlight your post here. That's actually one of the reasons why I'm live streaming actual work. This is actual work that I'm doing for my company. And it shows people that even people who have been doing this for decades have the same issues and the same struggles. So, I don't even remember what the actual issue was now. Let's see. I'll have to make this big so I can actually see. It still can't restart nginx. Why is that? Let's go over here and do a journal control, I guess. And here it says enter the dead state. Let's do a restart of nginx, I guess. Failed. Why did it fail? Failed with result exit code. Failed to start. But why? Invalid URL prefix in node exporter line 14. Okay, that's good to know. I'm pretty sure, yeah, there isn't any. So we need to talk HTTP to this endpoint. and that needs to be in there. We'll add that to the template, not to the variable that gets passed in, I'd say. Or here the node exporter URL. We'll assume that we are going to talk HTTP to that because it's local. So where's my template? Here. Oh, that's that. Not sure if I can actually go and do a TKC, because with a broken configuration it might try and start nginx before it does other things, especially before it corrects the configuration file, and that is when it trips over its own feet. What I'm going to do is again simply remove the broken configuration. That way nginx can restart. Then Chef can rewrite its configuration, and then hopefully it'll be able to do everything it's supposed to do. Yes, that's the case. So let's go over here and take a look at the file again. We are listening on all interfaces, port 19100, and we'll pass all requests to localhost 9100. So at the moment, nginx will simply pass requests through, and that's all it's doing, which means our tests that exercise node exporter, of which there aren't any in this cookbook, okay, should still work, but we could try it manually. I'm already in this virtual machine, so if I do a curl http localhost 9100/metrics, I should get the usual node exporter information, which I do. And if I talk to localhost 19100 metrics, yeah, that should work as well, because at the moment nginx is simply passing through all requests without question, and that's okay. But now of course we'll have to build in the IP-based access control, and I'm not actually sure if and how we're going to test this. We should be testing it, yeah, we should. And I guess we'll have to trick our test suite into thinking that there is a Prometheus server on a specific IP address. So this IP address gets allowed, and then we can run our tests using that source IP address or something like that. Well, no, we can't. Oh, let's cross that bridge when I reach it. Okay. Where are we in time, actually? Oh, okay, it's 5 o'clock. So, folks, I'll be honest, I feel pretty spent at the moment. It's still pretty hot outside, almost 30 degrees, and it's not less in here, I guess. So after 2 hours, I think it's okay to wrap things up, and I'll make the rest of these changes either offline or in my next live stream, whenever that's going to be, because I might actually choose to be at a pool or a lake instead of inside doing live streams this week, especially given that I'm on holidays, actually. I'm trying to blend work and holidays in a little way, because I am flexible that way, and I'm yeah, I said something earlier, not really thinking when I said I should do a live stream from the pool, and then I realized that there is already a Twitch category for that. Yeah, I was referring to doing actual work from the pool, but because I really can't compete in that other category, I guess. yeah, a two-camera setup with the lake as a nice little scenery and code. And that would allow me to even take off my t-shirt. Thinking about it. Well, I guess my mobile broadband will not be up to snuff for that. I'm happy that my broadband connection here at my holiday home is holding up enough to do at least a 720p stream here. Anyway, this was still nice. I had to push myself a little bit to do this coding work, but it needs to be done anyway. And I had a lot of fun chatting with you folks. If I actually get to do a live stream on Thursday, it'll be at 1 p.m. UTC. I might actually be at a lake at that time, because if the weather is okay, if there aren't any thunderstorms or things like that, then I'll definitely be at a lake with my family. But if the elements conspire against me, there will be a live stream on Thursday 1 p.m. And thank you for following Yakshman. Thank you. Welcome to the stack. I appreciate the follow. Okay, so there's still going to be another video session ahead of me today, because later in the evening I'm going to do the review call for the Linux Administration Master Course, which is a course that I'm giving at the moment. If you're interested and want to learn a little bit more about that, you can get more information here. And other than that, yeah, that's it for today. Thanks for stopping by, thanks for chatting, I had a lot of fun, I hope you did too, and I'll see you soon. Until then, take care.